Hello lovely people, my name's Nicole and it's the end of the month, and so therefore it's time for my October wrap up. So I read a solid amount of books this month. I'm on track on my Goodreads reading challenge, which is always a good thing to see. Feeling good reading wise, but let's just jump right into the wrap up and let's start off with Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This was the first book I read this month. I read it pretty much as soon as I got it and oh my god, it's so good. Obviously, I can't say much about the plot of this specific book because it's a sequel, and so like spoilers, like major spoilers would have to be said in order to talk about anything that actually happens in this book. But everything that happens is beautiful, mostly. I say everything, not everything. There were tears, literal tears. It was like, started at like one specific point in the book, which is very easy to guess if you've read it. And then like from then until probably a solid hour after I finished it, I was just bawling. I feel like that's a good thing when you're reading a book, if it makes you feel such strong emotions that you are physically affected. I feel like that says something pretty important about the writing. And Leigh Bardugo's writing is amazing, and all these characters are beautiful, and they went through some really awesome character development in this book, and there were so many moments that I just had to stop and squeal because they were adorable and wonderful, and some of the romances in this were amazing. There were a lot of moments that made me very frustrated, but in like a good, like intentional kind of way. It was just a great book and such a fantastic finale to the series. I just have a lot of emotions about the series. If you have not picked up the series, it's basically a fantasy heist novel and it's amazing and you should pick it up. I gave this 5 stars. Then for the first of several books of poetry I read this month, I read The Princess Saves Herself in This One by Amanda Lovelace. Out of all the books of poetry, and I read probably I think 4 different collections this month, this one was my favorite. Obviously I tabbed quite a few poems. The very first one I tabbed wasn't even technically a poem, it's a dedication. Let me just take a second. Let me just read this. For the boy who lived, thank you for inspiring me to be the girl who survived. You may have a lightning bolt to show for it, but my body is a lightning storm. Like, that almost made me cry the first time I started reading. I'm talking about crying a lot in this video, apparently. Apparently I'm just a really emotional person this month. It's broken up into 4 sections: the princess, the damsel, the queen, and you. Amanda Lovelace going through her life, and it is mostly in kind of a chronological order type thing. Obviously it's poetry, so it's not like there's really a narrative. You know, all the poems relating to her mother and her sister's death are all together. Poems relating to her childhood are all together, and it's just so good and has so many fantastic feminist messages and just beautiful words. I cannot express how much I love this book of poetry. Please pick it up. It's absolutely incredible. I think it's actually, this particular version that I have is self-published, but she got picked up by a publisher recently, and so a new edition's coming out, which I will be picking up because it's amazing, and I think there's going to be a little bit of extra stuff in that, a new edition. So like I said, it's amazing, and I gave it 5 stars and I love it. This like maybe my all-time favorite poetry collection. It's like up there with Milk and Honey. Then I read Odyssey, Volume 1, Off to Far Ithaca, and that's by Matt Fraction and it's illustrated by Christian Ward. And this is a strange comic book. The art is awesome, super colorful and weird and kind of trippy, but really cool. And this is a retelling of the Odyssey, except it's sci-fi, and almost everyone's a woman. But like there are women, and then there are sebexes, which is this new gender that like women use to procreate with, and it's really complicated, and there are a number of the plot lines of the Odyssey that it like subverts and sort of plays with, and it's really different and really interesting. Like I said, very trippy. There is a lot of NSFW type stuff in here, so just like be aware of that. It's really cool, and I definitely think it's well worth reading. It is just so different and strange though, so I gave it 4 stars because I did like it. it's very weird. Then back to novels, I read The Hammer of Thor, which is book 2 in the Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard series. This picks up a couple months after the previous book left off, and I loved it. I wasn't a huge fan of the first book in the series. I mean, I liked it, but out of all the Rick Riordan books, it was probably my least favorite, which I mean, like, it's Rick Riordan, so even my least favorite is still fantastic, but this one, on the other hand, was so good, and I feel like this series is really sort of getting into the swing of things. I think it's only going to be a trilogy though. I am really, really excited as to seeing where this is going. This introduced a new character, Alex, who is gender fluid and the love of my life. And it was hilarious, as Rick Riordan books are, and wonderful. The action was so cool, and a lot of the plot lines were so inventive. I love learning about the Norse mythology. It's just awesome, and Rick Riordan is like one of my all-time favorite authors. So if you haven't picked up this series, pick it up. So I gave this 4.5 stars. Then I read The Thousandth Floor by Katherine McGee, and I really, really enjoyed this. I was a little bit anxious at the end because I was like, what was that ending? I need more. And then I realized it's only the first in a series, so we're getting more, and I'm very excited about this. I loved the sort of gossip, futuristic gossip girly atmosphere. That was so much fun. The cast of characters was great. There were a few I liked more than others. I think Leto was probably my least favorite, but there was enough of a variety of characters, so it was really easy to find at least one plotline that had something interesting going on wherever you were in the books. Awesome portrayal of bisexuality, which of course I always appreciate in books. So I gave this 4.5 stars. Cannot wait to read the second one. Then I read The Lovely Reckless by Cami Garcia, and I wasn't gonna pick this up, but then I saw Cami Garcia at the Fierce Friends event, and she kept describing it as the Fast and the Furious meets Romeo and Juliet, and that sounded awesome. And the whole like car racing thing that's in this is so cool, and the romance is beautiful. The guy in this story is so swoon-worthy. And I thought the aspect of the main character's dad being an undercover cop was really cool. It's not really anything I've ever read before, and I know that Cami Garcia's stepdad had a similar job in high school, and so it's portrayed really realistically, and a lot of the frustrations and thoughts that go through the main character's head are from real experience and real things that Cami Garcia actually like thought and felt when she was in high school. That brought a really cool aspect to the book. I mean, the whole Romeo and Juliet storyline is obviously a classic. It's been done to death, and I feel like this was a really cool, fresh take on it. The main guy like had my heart from the moment, fairly early on in the book, when it was revealed that he was like feeding a stray cat regularly. They mentioned that, and I'm like, well, I'm gone, I'm done, I'm in love, we're good, we can just skip the rest of the book. So I gave this one 4.5 stars. Then I read another book of poetry, Whiskey, Words, and a Shovel, Volume 2 by R.H. Sinzine, I don't know, I'm sorry. And again, obviously I really liked it. Lots of tabs were used in this one. I did feel like near the end some of the poems felt a little redundant, just kind of rephrasing of ideas that had previously been expressed, but each rephrasing was beautiful in its own way. It had a really good sort of recurring theme of you're worth it, don't settle for people who like don't see that you're worth it and don't treat you like you're worth it. And that I really love. It's one of those books of poetry that just has a lot of reminders of things that, like, it's the advice that you give to other people, and you know it, but it's so hard to take it yourself, which is like super cheesy, but also like I'm such a sucker for that kind of poetry. So I really liked this. I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Last Seen Leaving by Caleb Broig, and I really liked this one. Obviously, I keep saying I really like all these books, but I just had a really good reading month, okay? Anyway, I appreciated that it took a storyline that I feel like we've seen over and over and over again. It's another one that's just been done to death. The sort of coming out storyline, lots of gay angst and all that jazz, and it gave it an interesting twist in that the main character's girlfriend had just gone missing, and he has to deal with like finding her and figuring out what happened to her while also trying to hide / come to terms with his sexuality and coming out and all that jazz. I just thought this was really well done. The mystery aspect kept me on my toes the entire time, even down to the last like chapter. There were still new twists and turns that took me completely by surprise. If you want to know more, even more of my thoughts, as well as Taylor from Taylish's Reads thoughts on this book, we're doing a live show for it on November 4th, so that's this Friday at 6 o'clock PST on Taylish's Reads channel, which I will link in the doobly-doo. I gave this book 4 stars. Then for more poetry, I read This For You and Only You, and on the actual book, the only like author it says is Please Find This, but according to the Goodreads page, it's written by Ian S. Thomas. So I think it's intended to be sort of an artistically anonymous thing, but it's not like actually anonymous. I don't know. The cool thing about this poetry book is that it has pictures along with the poems, and sometimes the pictures like are more heavily associated with what's going on in the poem. Sometimes they're just sort of aesthetically pleasing. I know there's a version of at least the first book in this series. The first book is just Please Find This. That's just the words, so if you aren't really interested in the pictures, you can just do that, which is kind of nice. Obviously, again, lots of tabbing, lots of highlighting. I really like this one as well. This one focused a lot on relationships and love and learning to love yourself and put yourself first, even like outside of relationships, and learning how to like get back to like where you need to be after a relationship, which was really cool. So I gave it 4 stars. Then I finally got around to reading Morningstar by Pierce Brown. I mean, I say finally, this hasn't been on my TBR as long as some books, but I feel like I've been reading this series for forever, mainly just because it took me an absurd amount of time to read Golden Sun. Oh my god, I'm finally done with this series and it feels so good, and this was so good. Such a great conclusion. I am so satisfied by how everything ended. I think the only issues I had with this were my own fault, in that I have had a really hard time remembering who was who character-wise. But like I said, it's taken me forever to finish this series, so that's probably why. Also, I tend to have a hard time following action sequences, which there were a lot of in this. But again, like I said, that's kind of my own problem. Although, I will say the action sequences that were in this were very inventive and unusual and really cool. And one thing that I think really was the main thing that struck me while reading this, other than the thing that always strikes me while reading Pierce Brown's books, which is just the insane like scale of the worlds he creates and how just completely immersive his world building is. It's absolutely incredible. But what really struck me while reading this is every once in a while they would have a moment where it's just, you know, Darrow and Severo hanging out and joking around and, you know, making stupid dick jokes, and you remember that they're only like 23 in this, which is super like crazy to think about. They're my sister's age. You know, in Golden Sun, they were my age, which is absolutely insane, because most of the time they're acting like these, you know, war-hardened generals who have been doing this all their lives, and they're kids, which is, oh my god, it's freaky to think about, but so good. This book is amazing. I gave this 5 stars because it's incredible, and Pierce Brown, I bow in awe of his writing talent. Then after I finished Morningstar, I needed something light and fluffy because that was intense and very heavy. So I read This Adventure Ends by Emma Mills, and this was exactly what I needed. The main guy in this, the love interest, is exactly my type when it comes to boys and books. He is broody and kind of cynical and sassy, but he's also super sweet once you get to know him, and it's amazing. And he's also like a little bit dorky. He's just wonderful. And the main girl, I got a little frustrated with her at times. I didn't quite agree with her all the time, but overall I think she was fantastic. A really cool main character. I loved Vera. She was hilarious and wonderful and totally best friend goals. I did feel like there were a few plot lines that seemed a bit extraneous or that were just inserted for convenience, like Sloane's whole singing thing. Overall, I did really enjoy this. I gave it 4 stars. And the last 2 books I read this month were 2 more books of poetry. The first one is Uncaged Wallflower by Jenny Cecilia, and it's a lovely little book of poetry. I mean, I definitely think the poet has a lot of room to grow writing style-wise, but I did definitely enjoy this. It had a very uplifting message, and I mean, she says in the description of the book, and there's like a Dear Reader section in the beginning that's sort of saying like, this isn't meant to like reach into the depths of your soul and like be in sorrow and solidarity with you. This is supposed to be like uplifting and inspiring, and I definitely think it succeeded in that goal. I just tend to prefer poetry that's less about like inspiring you and more about like, dude, I feel you kind of thing. That tends to resonate most with me. But I do feel like the best word to describe this poetry collection is it's lovely. I definitely think it's a great poetry book if you need a little bit of cheering up, and considering the fact that it's only like $5 or $6 on Amazon, definitely worth picking up. So I gave it 3.75 stars. Then I read Mouthful of Forevers by Clementine von Radix, and this book contains what may be my favorite poem of all time, which is Advice to Teenage Girls with Wild Ambitions and Trembling Hearts. I actually have a separate book that's just that poem. I did have a little bit of a hard time relating to a lot of the poems in this book, just because a lot of them were about like being super in love with someone and being in a committed relationship, and that's not my life right now. I had a little bit of a hard time connecting in that sense, but even the ones that I didn't quite get, I still really enjoyed them, and they're still absolutely beautiful because Clementine von Radix has this incredible way with words, and she sculpts them into these beautiful little flowers, and it's so good, and she's so wonderful and so talented, and you should definitely check out her poetry because she's great. So I gave this 4.5 stars. Alright, so those are all the books I read this month. Let me know what you guys thought of any of these in the comments. I love you, and I will see you later.